Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention Podcast. Today, I am joined by Amir Dori, who is head of game design at SciPlay now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exciting stuff. So we're going to delve into all sorts of things. Something you may not know about Amir is he's actually a lecturer at a college. So, we're getting access to, collegiate level courses here. So I'm pretty excited about today's conversation. But before we, delve into the wonderful world of game design, Amir, I always like to ask, what's your story? Like, how'd you get into, working in games?
Wow. Okay. So first of all, thank you for the introduction. Actually, it's a long story, so I will spare off the details. But it's like it started a lot before I even knew that there is like a title or a job like as a game designer. I'm based in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
In Israel, by the age of 18, all of the citizens are actually going to the army. For males are going 3 years, women are going 2 years. Now it's a bit different. But even before joining the army by the age of 17, I was actually creating games. But they were like, in PowerPoint presentations, like user choices, navigate to slide 30 or to slide 40 according to the user choice. I had my past experience as an animator, but a really mediocre one. Yeah, doing a lot of animations in Flash, Adobe Flash. So also there, I injected some user choices. How do you would like this animation to end? And then the user can choose the end of the animation, the scenario. So not really games, right? But after I finished the army, so I joined a high-tech company. It was a startup back in the days by 2007, and I was a Flash developer. Back in the days, Flash was it was a job, a Flashy.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I know how to animate. I know how to code. I learned ActionScript 2, ActionScript 3, so object-oriented development. And I start to create then actually interactive experiences, rich media campaigns, rich media banners for lots of advertisers. And then I actually injected lots of actual games, like racing games, more than just user choices for rich media campaigns. And I really liked the opportunity of creating an interactive experience and, to see the data behind it, how it actually increased, sales in the case of an advertiser or any other engagement like filling out a form. And I learned a lot from being an interactive specialist. It was under a marketing department in this company named MediaMind. Nothing that is actually truly connected to games per se. But in 2009, I was there until 2012. In 2009, in parallel, I said, okay, I really into the gaming world. I'm a gamer myself. Let's try to do some things as an indie, game developer. And I'm a creative person. Rather than just the ideas, I also, as I told, I can animate. I'm doing graphic design, so I was able to program plus do all of the UI and screens for the product. I only needed someone to help me with, native language of iPhone, for example, which was not my core knowledge. So I made some partnership with the software house. It was actually an interesting story because I developed in ActionScript, which is Flash language, and then they configured this, translated the language into iOS language, the Xcode. So I published several independent games as an officially, head of a game designer, but without calling it a game designer. One of the very stupid projects that I published back in the days was an app which is still live up to date, which is named iWatermelon the Look. Actually, this app, you're taking your phone, you're placing it on a watermelon, and you tap the watermelon 3 times, and then the app can tell you if the watermelon is ripe or not by the
wow
sound. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's nonsense, of course, right? It's not the exact science, but it's not a complete nonsense. It's just giving you a gamified experience of shopping for watermelons in the supermarket.
Yeah.
So you see people taking their phone, knocking the watermelons, and then, calculating data and telling you if the watermelon is perfect or not, if you should skip it or not. And it was, by the way, it was #1 app in Greece, in Israel, in Saudi Arabia. In Taiwan, it was a big hit in the news because watermelons are very expensive there, apparently. And it's a funny story because the development of this app was about 1 week. The graphic design for all of the screens, an additional 1 week, including screenshots, icons, description text, and so on and so forth. And it made a lot of money, more than we even anticipated, just because it was so innovative, or let's say it was so extraordinary. So it hit the news, and it hit the news in the written media, in the news flash. Of course, it was viral back in the days in YouTube. People were testing this not just on watermelons, but also, for example, a pregnant woman tested with the app, tested her belly. Someone also tested her chest to see if this watermelon is perfect or not. And actually, it was a very nice application, very entertaining one. But besides of the nonsense, also lots of core games, let's say, for casual games, hidden object games, puzzle games. And I really fell in love with the scope of being an indie game developer. And then I decided by 2012 to leave MediaMind and to be completely independent for 2 years, just to offer some rich media, services, let's say, for someone who wants rich media campaigns, flash banners, web designs, video graphics, and so on and so forth, but mainly to have some time to focus on creating new games. To continue the path, so by 2013, by the end of 2013, eventually I joined Tabtel. These days they are known as the Crazy Lab. Probably know them for sure, based in Tel Aviv, in Israel. And I was able to join there because of my past experience from being an indie game developer. And the reason that I wanted to pause a little bit what I did as a sole individual and to join another company is that I saw that the market become very, very data driven, and you need lots of money, for
people,
campaigns. And people, exactly. So I said, okay, I want to learn and I need to learn. So by joining a company, I can learn from the analytics team, I can learn from other game designers, I can learn from the developers, and so on and so forth. And then I grew up within the company. So I started as a creative developer, which is actually a game designer without calling it a game designer. Then after 1 year, it actually changed officially to be a game designer. And by the end, I was the lead game designer in Tabtel's most successful studio, Kids Fun Club, back in the days. Also, I managed people and hired people abroad in Macedonia mainly, and raised a team of new game designers to be there. I left Tabtel by 2016. And this is also a nice story because the reason that I left them was that my former manager, my former boss from MediaMind, he called me and said, hey, I'm now the CEO of a new company, an educational company named Matific, and we are creating games, but we are actually missing a lot of knowledge in creating games. So the outcome is that we are actually creating some nice activities, interactive experiences, let's say, that have some very deep pedagogy, but not so engaging, not really talking with the same language of kids and what is the industry standard for games. And they really lacked the experience of a game designer per se. So I said, okay, this is a challenge. They don't have this animal, a game designer in the company at all. I have an opportunity to join them. And of course, it was to work with my favorite, boss, which I appreciate from back in the days. So I said, okay, I'm going to embrace this opportunity. And by 2016, I joined Matific, which is a startup, an educational company that is dealing with mass education for kids from kindergarten until grade 6, creating thousands of activities, because for every grade, you have a different curriculum. And in every country, you have a different curriculum for this same grade. For example, the curriculum for grade 4 in Israel is not the same as grade 4 in Australia. So we have all of the curriculums from the Ministry of Education. What does it mean from their aspect for a kid in grade 4 to be able to declare that they know math for grade 4? We got all of the list of all of the curriculum, and per each item in the curriculum, we created different activities that are teaching this exact thing. And by teaching, I don't mean just to let them practice it, but actually to experience it, to learn and to know how mathematics work because of their intrinsic motivation. The game was their goal. The flow of the game, the story, the narrative, the characters, they were on a mission, for example, to be master chef, and they need to bake some cake in order to win the competition. But the path to do this was that you are a sous chef, and the chef is asking you, okay, so we have 8 egg templates, and in each template we have 8 eggs. So how many eggs do we have? So I'm not really asking the kid 8 times 8, what is the answer, right or wrong, and then just utilizing gamification, lean gamification, with scores and badges and so on. But actually, we need to know the answer in order to progress, and we have motivation because everything was very, very intrinsic. And then, of course, after several activities with concrete theme and metaphor, then we allowed ourselves to have more abstract worksheets, let's say, because it's also part of the curriculum. But we encounter the kids with the abstract worksheets only after we made sure that during the past, they encountered the right metaphor, the right experience, and they are actually learning through games. And this is very interesting way of learning. It's becoming very, very trendy and popular because it's proven kids are actually learning a lot, exploring a lot, by games. And here, when you're playing game, although it's a math game, but it doesn't look like a math test, but it's an actually game with goals and motivations and factors, as I said. So your motivation and your goal is different. And you're playing, and even if you did a mistake, you don't think that you failed. You don't think that you're stupid. Fear of failure for kids is very, very something that they are frightened from. But here, if you're failing in a game, okay, try again. Like in games, like in every game that you got busted, you got killed or whatever, and you need to try again instantly. So the feedback is instant. They're trying on the spot, and then they're utilizing another strategy. Okay, what I did wrong, how I can overcome this challenge, and not just do you know the solution, like teachers are asking in school. And also what I learned from this company is really nice because usually most of the game designers are B2C oriented. Usually, not all of them. Also, for example, in Tabtel or as an indie game developer, and the consumer market is the one that we are approaching. But here, because it's an educational product, so they had 2 different branches, the B2B and the B2C. And the B2B, of course, is what the product that was sold for school, and then you are actually having salespersons, not marketing people, but actual salespersons who are going and conducting meetings with the school principals, with the Ministry of Education, with the district leaders, and so on and so forth, in order to close deals. And then you're getting into lots of schools, and you don't really need to sell yourself aggressively, by lots of rewarded videos or lots of interstitials and so on and so forth. You're just closing the deals, and then the experience can be very, very soft, very, very engaging, and much more naive, let's say, in terms of game design. Not with all of the promotions and selling and the aggressiveness of dark UX, let's say. But on the other hand, they also pitched for the B2C track, let's say, because parents who wants to download an app for their kids, or even kids that wants to practice and to learn math, they just downloaded the games and practice them. I can tell now from this perspective that the company had some very good decision of making a change rather than maintaining two tracks of B2C and B2B. There was a very good decision to combine them. And as a senior game designer, I was the senior game designer of Motific. I was, let's say, at first in charge of the game design aspects of three different departments. The first one was the B2B product, then the B2C product, and then the content, all of the activities that are creating, because the content is the food and the products are is the restaurant that is serving the food. So everything is a game, but there is like the meta game and the games themselves, the activities themselves. But rather than maintaining two different tracks with two different development teams and two different QA teams and two different product managers and so on and so forth, we just decided about 1.5 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, to embrace the approach of one product to rule them all, and we combined everything into a new meta game. And then it really depends on the user. If you are a parent, if you are a teacher, if you are a student in class or student in home, you can just choose your portfolio, your profile, and the game features were locked or unlocked according to the specifications. But it's just one single product, and then all of the marketing efforts, the development efforts, the QA efforts, the product efforts, everything was focused on this specific product. So it was a really, really good decision.
Yeah.
And as an evergreen product, it's really, you're also making a huge benefit from selling it to schools, because then the kids in school are getting exposed to a product which probably they was hard to find in the App Store organically. Because if you will write, like math game, you will get thousands of applications, tens of thousands of applications. But sorry for the language, most of them are.
But if it comes from this, it's kind of like the college books, your professor says to get this one, and that's the one that you get, right?
Exactly. And it's also competing with, a board with a chalk. So it's like $1 million. They really love it. And then they are continue to play it in home, and they can play with their friends, and their parents are also exposed to this product. So it really was a great decision to have this shift, let's say, in the product aspect.
Yeah.
So to continue the story, in Motific, I was a senior game designer for 5.5 years. And only, let's say, 3.5 months ago, I joined SciPlay. And this was also a nice opportunity, how I met SciPlay and how this opportunity came. I was, as we started this conversation, I'm actually a lecturer also in parallel. I'm a lecturer for game design, teaching lots of frameworks and best practices and models, Bartel player types, Doctalysis framework, the Hunter model, achievement systems, best practices for UX, and so on and so forth from my, diverse knowledge and past experience by working in these companies. And as a lecturer, I was invited to SciPlay to have a course of game design for the lots of product managers, directors, general managers, and so on. After I was teaching the course here in SciPlay, one of the participants approached me, a person that I really, really admire, and he said, "Look, there is a nice opportunity of joining SciPlay, because now the company is making a reorganization. If you know SciPlay is back in the days heavily based on slot machines, social casino games, and this was the main portfolio of the company. But only by January this year, they decided to have a reorganization and to take all of the social casino games under a social casino division, and to open a casual games division. And this was the opportunity that was offered to me to join the casual games division as the head of game design. And I can explain later what exactly does it mean in terms of what are the, the role, what is exactly the role, and what is the aspect of the role are.
Yeah.
But this is the story of how I came here.
I love that. So funny little tidbit. I actually went to college in Cedar Falls, Iowa, which is like basically no man's town, but Guess what? SciPlay is actually
So you know
based there.
SciPlay, exactly.
I do know SciPlay.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So I guess at what stage did you kind of come in? Like they wanted to launch these casual studios, or are you kind of building the studio, building the team? Did you kind of join the existing one halfway there? Like, where's it at, story wise?
So I joined in a very great situation, let's say, because of the reorganization, what they did is that they have, for example, three existing games, three existing studios under this new casual games division. But very quickly after I joined, they acquired a new company from Turkey. Their name is Elixus. They are doing hyper casual games. And now the division is 4 different studios. And in the future, we can't never say what will happen. So the timing was perfect because the role was a non-existing role. Okay, I had to design it by myself, to shape it, to bring all of the content and the responsibilities, how I think that this role should act, what is the actual vision, and what I will do. No one actually told me, okay, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, but hey guys, I need you to think what you can contribute, what are the values that you can bring in, what is the process, the procedures, how do you want to define the role? And I actually gave it a lot of thought because no one wants another chef in the kitchen. And to come from a perspective of saying, okay, guys, I'm a senior game designer, I will overview all of your game design and I will tell you what to do. No, for sure. This is not my approach, not my vibe. And I learned that with every studio. For example, I have a studio in Finland, a studio in Turkey, a studio in Austin, and a studio here in Tel Aviv. So with every studio, the skills are different, the methodologies are a bit different. The game, for sure, are different. The processes are different. So with every studio, I'm just learning what are exactly, the people, what they can bring to the table and what I can complete, how we can empower the design, where is the freedom, where I'm just suggesting things, but not as tasks, to do, or where I want to be a little bit more, but not to say assertive, but more knowledgeable and say, look, guys, been there, done that. I know from my past experience that this won't work as is, and we better shape it to be, in this direction rather than another one. So this is one thing, like to be a consultant as a metrics manager in the division level. Okay, but it's not a consultant from outside, it's a consultant from inside. And then it allows me to see that if one feature or one A/B test that we did and the results were very good, if we won in one aspect of game design in one studio, I can then embrace it and bring it into other games in my same division. Also, the knowledge sharing to be like the focal point, because the studios are also talking between themselves, but on the day-to-day basis, they are very focused on what they need to deliver. So it allows me to have a more holistic view about all of the games at once, and then to allow myself to share the knowledge with them, to tell them what I know that is working, that is not working, and so on. More than just consulting, it's actually to be an additional brain power and additional resource of game design. I'm a senior game designer for my, what I've done. And if someone is needing more than just my opinion, but needing actually my help with, keeping my hands dirty and dive in and to help with the design, this is what I'm doing. Even to empower what I just said, I can add it to my title that for now I'm the head of game design, but also the acting director of product in one of their studios, because they have this open position of director of product. Few months that we couldn't find any good candidates to date. So I took the opportunity to be the acting director of product for this specific studio, and I'm actually working with the product managers and with the people, even diving into their Jiras and the roadmap and suggesting or creating or envisioning the retention plan for one specific product, for example, and to to take tasks out of this plan. So it's actually not just to float around and zoom out, but actually to dive in and really help. So this is one of the core, let's say, strengths of this position.
Yeah.
And also because of my, as I said, my diverse knowledge and past experience, also to give best practices and to make sure that I somewhat unifying the methodologies or the game design, let's say, direction between the different studios. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is really helping. Again, I'm only here for 3.5 months, something like that. But you can see that I want to be honest, but what I'm hearing from others is that I'm bringing a lot of value and it's really productive and helping. So I'm very super happy. It was like beyond expectations, by joining SciPlay and helping so many people at once.
So, I know you've got this really extensive educational gaming background, which I think you're the first person to have on the show. So I have a lot of questions related to that.
Sure.
I'm kind of curious, like, what are the differences in game design between like educational games and say casual games?
Okay. To start from the end, all of the KPIs are completely different. If I'm talking about casual games, all of the day one retention and how you really want to see data in order to validate your product. Here it's a little bit different when we're talking about the educational world. It's more, I don't want to say anything bad about the casual games, of course, I'm working in this industry, but in the educational world, it's a little bit with more, let's say, novelty. So first of all, it's not like the metrics are the king, but the pedagogy is the king. First of all, is how to teach right, how the experience is right in terms of learning. And then only after the pedagogy is there, the game is serving the pedagogy and not otherwise. And it's challenging, but it's really interesting because a lot of times when I'm working as a sole game designer, I'm the father and the mother of this project. It's my idea, my production, and I just need to get some green light from the senior management, and that's it. When you're working in an educational company, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not I don't have any academic degree, by the way. So I'm working with a board of pedagogical, people, professors, and so on. And it's like on every project, 2 people are working on it together. Here in the casual world, if to give the reference, it's like the economy manager and the game designer, or the product, which are working together, So in the education world, it's the instructional designer and the game designer. The instructional designer is ensuring that the pedagogy is fitting and is really there. And the game designer is there to serve the pedagogy. But sometimes, many times, the pedagogy is limiting, or they will tell you, okay, the story is nice. The interactivity is nice, but it's creating some misconception that geometry shapes are only blah, blah, blah. So you have to drop the idea. But it's a good idea, but you have to drop it because you don't want to create any misconception in pedagogy. It's really something that it's like, holy, the feeling of you're making something that you must not, fail there. There are also a lot of other aspects. For example, all of the politically correct aspects of the pedagogical or the educational world that are not really exist in the casual game industry. If you're having some interactivity with food, for example, so no meat, you can't show meat. Everything must be vegetarian. If you're showing people, so in terms of gender or race, they need to be really equal. In Matific, for example, we solved it very nicely by having all of our characters as monsters, like Sesame Street, for imagine. So, no gender there, no race there, no anything that someone can judge or object. But even though when one of the characters is wearing a shirt, for example, you had to make sure that even if the sleeves are short, so they will end like my sleeve and not, here, like you can show in some locales, you can show exposed shoulders, for example. It's really up to this, politically correct principles. and you have to make it, because otherwise you will just shoot yourself in the leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, something very, very important, which can also bring a lot of insight to ones who are listening right now. In the casual field, most of the games are played on tablets, mobile phones, and that's it. Some of them also on PC. In the educational world, because we are also a product that is being sold in schools, so most of the games played on computers in school, and then it really comes into the concern about the bandwidth of the school in terms of the internet bandwidth, the size of the activity, the size of the product in terms of megabytes, because you encounter really often lots of performance issue and memory leakage, optimization issues, and slow loading times, because their internet is very, very poor. The devices are very, very poor. The hardware is very, very poor. And then you have to design your game according to these specific specifications, because otherwise you will try to pitch your product in in a school in Brazil, for example, and you will open the demo or the actual product, and the loading time will be 5 minutes for one activity, and everything will be very, very slow, and the experience is going to be slow. So you won't close the deal like this. So in terms of how we are guiding our technical artists, for example, how to make the art very, very efficient, very, very optimized, it's like a key success metric in order to reach school. How we are compressing all of the episodes, all of the interactivities, all of the metagame in order to download it very, very efficiently. It's really a key to success. Otherwise, it's a really hard world to enter into schools. Lots of regulations, lots of problems regarding poor devices and so on. So this is a huge difference between the two.
Gotcha. In casual casino type games and such, live ops has become a really big part of that, often accounting for 50 to 60% of revenue, sometimes upwards of 80% of revenue, and driving really significant, engagement and retention factors. Is live ops a thing in educational games, like daily challenges and, what have that you kind of drive out there, or not?
So yes, actually yes, but of course, for sure, not as for the MVP part. For the MVP part, when you are designing an educational product, you need to have the user progress, the flow, how they are going to load the activities, what is the post, screen for the activity, how they're going to make a progress. But then you want to drive engagement, you want to drive retention, you want to drive curiosity. So usually we're adding on top of that some, achievement system, daily missions, as you say, daily quests. And then, but all of the missions are not just sugarcoating. They are actually there to support the pedagogy. So even I, as a game designer, when I'm designing an achievement system, then I'm asking my instructional designers, the pedagogical people, to give their opinion and to see if I actually serve the pedagogy. So for example, a good example for an achievement system in the educational world will be improve a score in 3 activities, or replay 2 activities, because it's also important to practice the same activity, not just to move on to the next one. So replay the same activity 3 times. It can be a challenge. Of course, there are also the login X days, encounter X characters, and so on, but mostly it will be around the pedagogy, how I can support it by the achievement system. Also, you mentioned live ops per se, so for example, events, also something that we really want to utilize. But when you are an international company, I'm talking only on the educational world right now, it's really hard to have some event like in the casual games that is based on some, holiday, such as Thanksgiving or Easter egg or Christmas, because it's really local specific, or even, it's touching areas of religion. And again, religion is a big no-no in the educational world. What Muslim or Christian or Jewish people can do really, really differs. So you don't want to have any, Christmas event for Jewish people, for example. You don't want to have Hanukkah events for Muslim and so on and so forth. So the events are really around, spring events, winter events, summer Olympics, math Olympics, stuff like this. And there is a lot of incentive in having this event system also in the educational world. Of course, because kids are, playing lots of games, and it's becoming like a standard. And it's a standard. Yeah. You must have achievement system. You must have daily quests or daily challenges. You must have events.
Yeah.
They are just so used to it, and we are utilizing this pattern also in the educational world.
That's great. Interesting. Okay. So getting back towards casual games, as you're kind of, in this realm now, this is a new studio, and obviously you guys are going to get into something that, everyone gets into at some point, which is, how do you iterate on new game ideas to figure out like what you should build, especially in today's market, which is, kind of saturated with games. There's a lot of other choices that people can play, and you're no longer really recruiting people that have never played a game to like start playing a game. It's like your game is going to steal them away from whatever they're currently playing. Right. So what's your process for coming up with new game ideas and figuring out if they, are worth exploring or not?
So first of all, it's a great question, because if I will compare it just for a glance to the education world, there the game ideas coming from the curriculum. You have a specific, request from the regions. They're asking you what you need to teach, and then the idea is about your creativity. How do you want to teach? Okay, but you have the end goal of what you need to teach, and not how you need. Just a second. And in the casual world, it's really differs. So first of all, for example, in other companies, I won't mention names from this moment and on, it was like a marketing research. What are the next Disney movies that are going to come out, this year? Or what are the next great events? Is there a Mondial, a Super Bowl, a Olympic event, and so on, like, global events? And then you said, okay, there is going to be this huge movie about dragons from Disney, and they are going to put tons of money about, marketing dragons. Let's make a game about dragons. But this is just, okay, so this is the theme. What's going to be the game itself? Then you need to start and, propose several ideas. In the hyper-casual game world, for example, then the process is very similar to what other casual companies are doing. It's about creating a video before there's even a game. Once you have the idea, okay, let's try to see if the idea is selling. And let's create a video which is a demo of an yet to be existing game, just demonstrating some gameplay. And you're just, you're buying, 10,000 impressions, 50,000 impressions for this specific video. You're checking the CTR rate. And if you're seeing that the CTR and the CPI are good, so you said, okay, validate that this idea has interest from the people. And it's like, making the validation of, okay, let's actually develop this game to be more solid. This is also becoming somewhat of an industry standard, to try to create demos of games through advertisements before the game is even existing. But not all of the time you can actually, if you have a really big game and not a lean experience, you can demonstrate everything, and you don't want to invest lots of things there. So you're just doing lots of marketing research. And then the other approach that we are bringing into the table is to see, okay, competitors analysis, what games are performing very well, what fraction of the market we can take, what share of the market we can take, and then how we can merge maybe two different, successful things or meta games into a new innovative one, which is a great example, because this is what we are doing in one of the studios right now, for example, making the next big innovative game, which doesn't exist yet. So it's actually like, okay, what's working? Let's take the components or what we know that is working in other games, but let's consolidate them into a new game, innovative one with a new approach. And we really believe that this game is valid. of course, now the next stage is to create some, marketing campaigns before the game is even there, just to see the CTR rates and the CPI.
So for the marketing kind of analysis competitor type stuff, like, are you guys using like a Sensor Tower, data.ai, different tools like that?
Yeah. Game refinery, data, App.Annie, formerly App.Annie.
Yeah. Do you, on some of those early prototypes, have you ever found success with like play tests or like a play test cloud, different services like that?
Okay. So first of all, getting back to the educational world, it's going to be a ping pong.
I like it.
One of the best things, really the best thing in the educational world is that because you're dealing with kids, and I'm speaking also on kindergarten, right? So you can't really, it's not like, cloud testing and so on, that you can just say, okay, I want 5 females, 5 males. I want them to be, to have experience of playing games X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth. You just, kids, you can't really select them. So in the educational world, we had a lot of live usability testing. We just invited into the company a complete class, and three different kids are joining for a day in the office, you're giving them snacks and drinks, and then you're giving them to test new games before they are even out. And we are actually observing them, like offline, and writing exactly how they are playing. And one of the things that I actually learned from the masterclass of Will Wright is not to give a computer to one kid, like one computer per kid, but to place 2 kids over the same computer and then to have turns between them. Because when one kid is playing, what they're doing, they're thinking out loud everything. They're saying, okay, now I will do this, I will do that. And the other one, which is their partner, saying them, no, don't click this, click here, click there. And you're actually hearing them thinking and explaining to each other and teaching each other. It's really much more, productive than just placing one kid in front of a computer and that's it. And the big jackpot there is that because it's encouraged by the Ministry of Education, for example, is that we had an actually on-site event, like the Math Olympics. And as a game designer, it was a heaven, because imagine that you're entering some hall and you are seeing 800 students from all over the country playing your games for 6 hours. And they are challenging and under competition to see which school is going to win and contribute more stars, blah, blah, blah. So actually you are observing all of them at once, 8,000 students playing your games. Not something that you can see in the casual world, okay? Unless you're buying 800 people to come to an offline site and to observe them. So it really gives you lots of insights about, also about bugs, right?
Yep.
But about how they're actually utilizing your game, how they are playing your game. Most of the time, what we have in mind, what is the reality is totally different. And it's not like recording their mouth or watching a heat map. You're actually seeing them, what they are challenging and what they're facing. It's really, really nice. Going back to the casual world, there we have lots of different approaches. So first of all is, of course, as you said, cloud testing, for example, Applause and so on, so for services like that. So we can actually say, okay, for my solitaire game, I want to have 10 females, 10 males, which know how to play Klondike solitaire, and I want them to play at least 30 minutes, and I want them to record their sessions, and I want them to think out loud and to write comments, and then to answer a survey. It's one approach that we are doing. It gives a lot of insight. You just, like any other approach, you have to take them very carefully, because 10 people, it's not like a math. But
so you don't like take an iPad to the nursing home and give it to my grandma and be like, well, if she can figure out this game, then anyone can.
Exactly. Yeah. So actually, I gave some of the games to my mother to play, and I was so frustrated. Like, how obvious it is. It tells you, there is a tutorial that tells you click this button, and she doesn't know what to do. So I blamed the language. I said, okay, she's not reading English very well. So, but then I said, okay, maybe we need to translate the game. I don't know. Just every time that you're seeing someone else playing your game, it really gives you tons of great insights. We're really embracing this approach of listening to our users. Most of the time, we're actually forgetting that we are not the players of the games that we are making. For example, one of the games, name doesn't matter, really facing females. Females, 35 years old, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a female in this specific segment. And when I'm playing the game, although I have some, vision and direction how I want to improve the game, I might be totally wrong. I need to listen more to the exact audience that I'm targeting. And this is why we are actually approaching user testing, like in video recordings or actually surveys and so on.
So I read a book one time about innovation in, I think it was P&G, Procter and Gamble, one of the biggest like consumer type products providers in the world. And I think it was co-written with like an old CEO and the consultant that he brought in to like redo how they do innovation there. And one of the stories that they brought up in that book was very fascinating to me. And it was about a golf club company that created this golf club that they called the Big Bertha, and how they came about doing that. So at that point in time, might have been like the 90s, maybe early 2000s. I think it was the 90s though. They were looking to like make a new golf club. At that point in time, maybe 10% of men in the US was like the primary audience of people that played golf, X, Y, and Z. And most other golf club companies, they looked at that 10% of guys and like, how can we make them like another club? And this other company said, well, let's look at the 90% of guys that aren't playing golf. And why not? Well, after they interviewed and talked to a whole bunch of guys, the general consensus was, I don't want to suck and look like an idiot in front of like my buddies or whatnot. And so they, iterated on that. And what was the most key thing? Well, a lot of guys would, just slice the ball like terrible, off par on that initial tee. And, if you do that in front of your buddies, you're going to get a lot of crap. Don't want to do that again. And so they created
the fear of failure, as I said in the educational world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so they made this Big Bertha club, like huge, really head. And it was much harder to just do that terrible shot. And they actually brought a lot of guys into golf. Not only did they do that, though, a lot of the existing 10% guys, they had that same problem, but they weren't really aware of it. They just thought they kind of sucked at golf and had to figure out how to get better. But then in came this club that they could use and they could hit the ball better. And so a whole bunch of them bought the golf club too. And it was kind of this like innovation thing. And so if you think about that, like in games, Candy Crush, there were other match threes before, but Candy Crush really came in and redefined it for mobile, right? But I think there was a large number of, I'm going to say, women 35 plus. I know that there's men that play Candy Crush, but let's pretend our audience is just there. That, it's kind of like, well, what's the purpose here? Like, why am I just like endlessly playing level after level after, like, there's really like no why, no substance to it. And then, in came Homescapes and they say, well, let's give you a little bit of a why. Like you still have that same match 3 level, but now you get stars so that you can repair your mansion or garden or whatnot.
By the way, this example is even better because the match 3 is not the same level again and again. They have some tweaks in the level design. It's not like you will take a chess game or solitaire game, and this is the exactly same gameplay every time.
Yep.
Right. So even in the match 3 games, it's not the same game. They're also
absolutely.
But great example, they're giving you the why.
Yeah. But then, there were even, players that again had that same sort of feeling of, why would I get a mansion? Like, why does everyone get a mansion? Like what's going on here? And then, in came Lily's Garden. by Tactile Games that like extended it. And yeah, you're still repairing a garden, but now you're like more wrapped into Lily's world. And there's like live ops events where like suitors come and there's just like narrative story and you get such a deeper connection into the game. And you know, all three of those are good games and they're all doing well, but I think they're serving a different subset of the population. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, you know, does it make sense from your perspective, or have you ever done this where, you know, I want to make a new casual game that's maybe somewhat like this, but rather than focusing on the players that already play that game, do I focus on the players that by all accounts should be playing that game but aren't? So why aren't they? Like, what don't they like about that game that I could maybe solve in my game to attract all those other players?
Actually, it's a good question because I have a specific example how to answer it, but I'm not sure I can expose, you know, everything because SciPlay is a public company. I will just say that when we wanted to change the audience for one of our games, because again, let's say that you are targeting females, but it's not in balance, okay? Because it's like 90% females, 10% male, and you said, okay, no, I want 50-50. I don't want 90-10, because then 90-10, for example, is just you are starting to add more more features or more, let's say, even tweaks that are approaching this specific segment, and you're just empowering it rather than balancing it. So, you know, I don't want to, I'm talking high level. So you don't want just to color everything in pink and to have everything cute, just to address more, let's say, visuals which are appealing a little bit more to females, because then I'm strengthening this approach rather than balancing the game. So one of the things that we're actually doing is, without giving any names, but for one of the products, we're actually duplicating it and reducing it to very lean product, like an MVP version of a very successful product, but very lean, to start, let's say, from scratch with just the very core gameplay, and then, you know, to see what is going to be the impact of the retention. Okay, we have a good retention, let's add some metagame feature, but in pills, you know, like one layer after a time, not with a complete vision with story and end game from day one, because we have this already. We just want to do something new and to see how we can now balance it from a very naked product with a good gameplay, but only focusing on this gameplay. No game economy, no meta game, no live ops, nothing, just this very core gameplay in order to check the retention metrics. So this is something that we are actually doing.
Yeah. So is that more of a, to just like truly understand like what is the driving factor like of this game, of this genre or whatnot, kind of a thing?
Yeah, because then you regarding metagame, you just get three different great examples. Okay, I can have a saga map, I can have some you know, mansion, let's say, or garden or whatever that I will decorate or repair or fix. I can have some narrative story to advance and so on and so forth. So metagame opportunities, there are tons of them. Mm-hmm. But let's start with the very lean product. Let's see what if the product is working, and if so, okay, now let's add a feature from this metagame. It's not going to work, let's revert, let's do another thing, and then we are actually building up bottom up.
So what would, like, let's say a match 3 game, like what is the complete core game? Like, is it Candy Crush with the levels, or is it like literally just the match 3 itself and there's no board, there's no nothing, it's like just the match 3?
So this will be just the match 3, one level after another. But then we know that this product probably won't, you know, won't bring lots of good retention metrics, because there are much more, the games out there, the offerings are way more sophisticated, let's say. So if you're taking a very classic game, let's say backgammon, chess, so on, so this could work. Just play chess, you know, as a Zen game mode. People just want to play chess, no dramatic, you know, metagame and so on. For match 3, I don't see a reason that someone will only play match 3 one level after another today, because of, you know, as I said, lots of brilliant metagames that are out there. But yes, probably it will be just for first to to test the mechanics, to test the experience and the onboarding of this level of this gameplay, but then not to do like in Candy Crush that the match tree is the king and the saga is only, the metagame is only supporting the match tree, but to do like in Garden States that the metagame is the king and the match tree is what brings you the resources in order to advance in the metagame. You get what I'm saying? It's like now the tables they are changing, because at first it was actually the level, the game itself was the core gameplay, and you just progress from level to level on the saga map and so on. And it was like very appealing for achievers. I want to achieve mastery in this game. Now it's more appealing to explorers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just realized we're almost out of time. I got one more question and then one more unofficial question. We could go on for a long time, but this is really great. Let's take Candy Crush to Royal Match. I can't play Candy Crush anymore after playing Royal Match. It has ruined me. And it is about how the levels work and how they make it so you just get so many more boosts. Like, it's just so much more fun than Candy Crush.
More engaging and more, and the animations are better.
Yeah, the animations are better. It's smoother. Like, everything about it is just better, in my opinion. Again, that's limited to me. But
I'm with you.
If I'm stripping this down to try to understand, would it be like I strip down and I clone exactly the Candy Crush level, and I strip down and I clone exactly the Royal Match level, and then each Royal Match level and Candy Crush is effectively cloned 1-to-1, so I get the core experience to understand that? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I think match 3 boards can be very different even at that base level of like how they function and what's going on in them, if you understand my question.
Yeah. And also, by the way, you do have some narrative even in a very lean match 3 game, right? Because the boards, although they are the same, there you are connecting candies and there you are connecting cubes with some royal symbols over them. So again, your perception as a player is very narrative oriented. In Candy Crush, I believe that it's a great product for sure. I mean, they are very profitable and so on, but it's more of a past in terms of the saga map, as I see it. And now another product with the saga map featuring a match 3 game won't work this well. And now this is the reason why, for example, Royal Match is way more engaging, because you're actually playing the match 3 game, but only to serve you in the progress of decorating your rooms and achieving your goals out there and so on and so forth. Also, there are like the boss level, let's say, the hard levels, where the time is against you and you see this wall with the driller aiming to crush the king, and it's very scary and you need to rescue him very fast. So it's a lot of motivations of how I'm rescuing and helping others, and I'm applying my creativity. It's appealing to progress, to curiosity. What's going to be the next room? What's going to be the next decoration? Some things that are not actually coherent to Candy Crush. What is the difference between level 1000 to level 500? In Royal Match there are differences. In Candy Crush they are less. So I think that again, also the audience is more mature. We need more exciting moments, and we are looking for it. Yeah,
that's great. I love it. Okay, I've got one last unofficial question, because we are on the Mastering Retention podcast, of course, and that is, what's one tip or trick or lesson you've learned over the years to keep players playing for longer? Like, how do you keep them coming back, day after day, week after week?
I will answer in what is the lens that we are looking on the retention game. Okay, so I guess that this is, by the way, also an industry standard. If not, then I'm happy to teach our listeners. But when we are talking about a lens of day 1 retention, then day 7 and day 30. So day 1 retention, we're focusing on the onboarding, on the first time user experience, on the look and feel of the game, on the controls, how the UX of the game is performing and so on. If you are spotting an issue in day 1 retention, only try to attack these things. your theme, your look and feel, onboarding, as I said, first user experience, and so on and so forth. If you're experiencing some issues in day 7 retention, then it's not about the core gameplay, it's about the core game loop, the game economy, the return triggers, the depth of your game, the curiosity, you know, if I'm being triggered. And then day 30 is about the huge aspects of the live ops, social, and other features related to the meta game, you know, like events, competition, so on and so forth. So this will be my tip, that if you are seeing some issues in, you know, day 1, day 7, day 30, most of the time I see people that are saying, okay, we have a retention problem. Let's bring leaderboards. Let's add competition. Let's add events of 1 to 3. But these features are actually contributing to day 30. If your issues are on day 1, forget everything. Try to think about your tutorial, about your design, about the metagame in the very first, you know, impression of the game. And it's really important to know where to put the effort, where to put the focus, according to these 3 different, you know, day metrics, let's say, for the retention. Because most of the time I see that people are attacking the wrong problem. Their ideas are actually supporting retention. They are valid for increasing retention, but not for the accurate days. They are not targeting the accurate days. Okay.
Yep. Makes sense. Well, that's great. Well, Amir, thank you so much for joining us. If people do have any questions, is there a good way for them to follow up with you after this?
For sure. Yes. I hope I can help, and always love to.
Cool. All right. Well, I will let you go. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot, Tom. It was a pleasure.
Bye.